The state of West Virginia is a location that harbors true horror. Over the last century, there have been multiple reports of strange cryptids and supernatural beings whom have petrified and terrorized the residents of the small state and visitors alike. Today, we are going to investigate one of these beings, a creature whose existence is not yet confirmed, but has a long history of being one of West Virginia's most mysterious and infamous cryptids. Everyone, I present to you the story behind the one and only, the Smiling Man. This narrative begins on the evening of October 16th, 1966. That night, two young boys were out wandering the streets of Elizabeth, New Jersey, when they encountered something rather peculiar. While strolling down 4th Street, the two boys noticed an abnormally tall human-like figure standing motionless behind a fence. Intrigued, both of them stepped closer to get a better look. However, their curiosity quickly turned into fear when they noticed it had an unnatural, grotesque smile, along with a green metallic-looking suit. At this moment, the figure phased through the fence and began to pursue the boys. With little time to react, the two of them sprinted as fast as they could until they got away. After finding solitude and letting the anxiety settle, they began to remember even stranger details about the encounter. They described it as a tall man, well over 6 feet, with tiny beady eyes spaced too far apart, plus missing facial features, such as a nose and ears. Coincidentally, on the same night, another man reported being chased by a green figure, and there were even reports of strange lights floating above the city. Nothing really came from these events. Most people dismissed their claims and went on with their lives. But 2 weeks later, and just under 500 miles away, someone else had a very up-close and personal encounter with what is believed to be the same entity. On November 2nd, Woodrow Derenberger, a salesman from West Virginia, was driving back home from a late trip to Ohio. As he cruised along Interstate 77 near Parkersburg, West Virginia, he noticed some strange lights in his rearview mirror that seemed to be closing in at a rapid pace. Then in the blink of an eye, the bright lights passed his vehicle, crossed back into his lane, and came to an abrupt stop right in front of him. With the brakes slammed to the ground, Derenberger spun out of control, but fortunately came to a halt before colliding with the anomaly. After a moment of confusion and panic, Derenberger looked over at the vehicle ahead of him, only to realize it was no ordinary car. What he saw was a massive spacecraft, shaped like an old-fashioned kerosene lamp, hovering roughly 4 feet off the ground. He watched in shock as the door opened up to reveal a tall, tanned man with slicked back hair, wearing what looked to be a reflective blue metallic suit, all while portraying a large grin on his face. This man stepped down and walked towards Derenberger's vehicle. Without talking, he spoke to Derenberger, and Derenberger listened without hearing. He described it as an unsettling, yet comforting experience. The strange man telepathically announced his name as Indrid Cold, and asked questions about the area. After a quick exchange of information, the Smiling Man revealed he would visit Derenberger again. The figure then stepped back into the craft and flew off into the sky. Immediately following these events, Woodrow rushed to Parkersburg to advise the authorities of his extraterrestrial experience. Expectedly, the police had a difficult time believing him, but that didn't stop the media from being interested in his story. The following day, Derenberger was interviewed by various civil servants during a live televised event for the Parkersburg station. This live broadcast then led multiple people from the local area to come forward and state how they too experienced similar phenomena, such as strange lights on the road, in the sky, and even a large metallic structure found parked on the side of the highway. With all of these happenings now coming together, this leads us to the main question. Who exactly is the Smiling Man? Based off the accounts of the two witnesses, the Smiling Man, also known as Indrid Cold, is best described as an unnaturally tall, tanned, male figure with an infinite grin, and typically found fashioned in a reflective green or blue suit. In the first encounter, he was described as having no ears or nose, with small beady eyes that were oddly spaced apart. Unfortunately, we don't know whether these features were present during the second sighting, as Derenberger only described him as almost normal looking. Additionally, it would be best to assume he is either alien or alien-like, as his presence in conjunction with the spacecraft seems to prove so. Furthermore, the Smiling Man has also even been theorized to be a ghost or poltergeist of some sorts, as he was sighted in Point Pleasant, West Virginia around the exact same time as the Parkersburg sighting. In the days leading up to November 2nd, a family in the small town reported supernatural-like activity in their home, such as diamond-shaped lights and various other problems. But that night, the daughter of the family awoke to the fright of her life. Here's what she recalled. It was a man, a big man, very broad. I couldn't see his face very well, but I could see that he was grinning at me. He walked around the bed and stood right over me. I screamed again and hid under the covers. Then when I looked again, he was gone. Although this was only one of his few sightings around the Point Pleasant area, this still led people to believe he had a connection with the infamous Mothman, whom began to appear only 10 days later. With all eyes on West Virginia, author and investigative journalist John Keel decided to take a trip to Point Pleasant to investigate the mysterious Mothman sightings. But during his stay, he received multiple phone calls from someone by the name of Indrid Cold. The last phone call warned Keel to leave the town of Point Pleasant, as something very bad was going to happen there. And of course, in December of the following year, the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 43 people. As much as a lot of people believed in the Smiling Man, many others also believed it was all just a hoax. Some of the reasonable explanations included that the Smiling Man was just a prank that went too far, or that a mentally unwell person was wandering the streets. Additionally, it stated that people may experience a distorted sense of reality when faced with extreme fear, anxiety, or panic. This could explain why the two young boys thought the man was missing some facial features, or how Derenberger's encounter could have just been a near-death experience from almost getting into a car crash. To further prove the unstable mind theory, many people dismissed Derenberger's claims even more after he admitted how the Smiling Man kept in contact with him. and even took him on trips to the figure's home planet of Lanulus, which is apparently located in the faraway galaxy of Ganymede. These trips apparently even lasted as long as 6 months. All of these stories led people to believe that Derenberger had simply just gone mad and lost his mind. Interestingly enough, there's also modern tales of the Smiling Man. It's hard to say if this is the exact same cryptid, but the story is told as follows. A few years ago, a man was wandering the streets at night when he encountered a strange character dressed in formal wear, waltzing down the street while staring up to the sky. Fortunately, nothing horrible happened, but he recalled how unnatural and strange the encounter was, as this dancing man began chasing him for a moment, all while having a sinister smile on his face the whole time. But whatever the case may be, the tale of the Smiling Man still lives on to this day, and with reported sightings even as recent as a few years back, it makes complete sense to why he has become one of West Virginia's most famous pieces of folklore. But as always, thank you and good night.